Hey, this is Jeremy, and it's time to talk about Maria.
Not today.
All right, so let me first say this. If you're a fan of Pablo Larraín's Jackie and Spencer, there's a good chance you're going to like this movie. However, for me, I realized that my enjoyment of these movies is very conditional on the some of the text and the actor at the center of the movie. So this being said, I'm sad to report that Maria fell short of these other two movies on a lot of different levels. So this is the final installment in Pablo Larraín's famous ladies trilogy, if you will, and it centers on the final week in the Greek opera singer Maria Callas's life. She died in 1977 in Paris. So Callas was famous for her incredibly wide ranging voice and her interpretive talents on stage. And I didn't know anything about this woman apart from having heard her name and some of her music throughout the years. I wasn't familiar with her story, which you could say had an impact on my enjoyment of the movie. But should it have? Does someone need to have read a person's Wikipedia page in order to enjoy a movie? For today's audiences, compared to Jackie Kennedy and Princess Diana, obviously Maria Callas is definitely the least known of the figures explored in these three movies. And also those previous two films dealt with events and themes that were everyone is very familiar with. The death of John F. Kennedy and the kind of alienation that Princess Diana felt in the royal family. And in that sense, not much happens in Maria. There's this kind of final interview framing device that kind of structures the movie. And it kind of falls flat because, spoiler alert, it's kind of all imaginary. So there's this surrealism here that, yes, was a bit present in Spencer and Jackie. I don't remember if there was a surrealism aspect to it. But here it really seems like that's all there is to this movie. So there's no like drama, like apart from the fact that she lost her voice or her voice has changed, but that happens years before this movie takes place. So in that sense, like the script is kind of weak here. The direction is fine, I guess, but it's really dependent on the script. So one of the most jarring things for me compared to the other two movies is kind of the blandness of the score. Mika Levy's score for Jackie is one of the most insane pieces of music I've heard in the past 20 years. I will never get over it. And the Johnny Greenwood score for Spencer is also super original and thrilling. Obviously, after checking the IMDb page for for Maria, there's actually no one credited with the score for Maria. So I guess it's really all pre-existing music, which kind of makes sense given the subject matter. But I think an original score would have kind of elevated the project a little bit for me. And obviously, this being a Pablo Larraín movie, the sets and the cinematography is amazing, but that can only take you so far. Which brings me to the performances. The performance. And for me, the weak link in this whole thing is Angelina Jolie, or Angie Jo, as I like to call her. And full disclosure, I've never really been a fan of Angelina Jolie. I don't find her kind of credible as an actress. I've only recently seen her Oscar-winning performance in Girl Interrupted. And she gets away with most of that for me, except a few scenes where it kind of falls apart. I would say that that's kind of the best I've seen her. She's one of those actors that you can kind of see the acting. You see kind of like every little detail and acting choice happening as it's taking place. Watching her act is kind of like opening up a clock and seeing all the little different wheels turning. I'm always aware that I'm watching someone acting. I can never like relax and be in the moment with the character. To me, that style only kind of works with big kind of over the top characters, like the work that she did in Maleficent. That her acting style fits with that kind of movie and that kind of character. And obviously in this case, the script doesn't do her any favors. There's not much to kind of hold on to.
This is the hardest thing I've ever done. I was terrified.
I think the movie really sets her up to fail by having the first scene in the movie be a close-up of her lip syncing to one of Maria Callas' songs. which on paper I have no problem with lip syncing. Like it used to be done a lot more in biopics. Nowadays, we kind of expect the actor to actually sing, but here it just feels off. Like right from the start, there's like a weird disconnect. It's like, oh, I don't believe what's happening here. And it's not like it's an artist that I know too well that I can't kind of step away from it and just see it for what it is. Like I have absolutely no frame of reference for this woman. So I think it's just Angelina. This isn't a new phenomenon for me with Angelina. So I think if you're fine with the work that Angelina's done in the past, you're probably going to love this thing. But for me, it kind of didn't really work. And throughout the entire movie, I thought that Andrea Riseborough was playing Maria Callas's maid. And I was like, oh my God, Andrea's killing it. Like she disappears in another character. But it turns out it wasn't even her. Later in the film, Maria has coffee with her older sister. And throughout the scene, I was like, who the fuck is this? Like, I know this woman's eyes, but I couldn't really place her. But looking it up afterwards, it was the Italian actress Valeria Golino, who I watched once, if not twice a day when I was a kid in the Pee Wee Herman movie, Big Top Pee Wee, the sequel to Pee Wee's Big Adventure. It's an inferior film, but it's the only one I had on VHS, and I ran that tape through. She was playing Pee-wee's, one of Pee-wee's two love interests, the one who works in the circus. Anyway, love her and love to see her again. She was kind of amazing in this movie, even though she had like just one scene. And also, fun fact, no one remembers this, but in the early 2000s, there was like some news reports that Celine Dion's husband, René Angélil, had bought the rights to Maria Callas's story in order to produce a movie in which Celine Dion would play Maria Callas. Can you imagine? That would have been kind of crazy. And I think Celine kind of looks a little bit more like Maria than Angelina. Americans have never really seen her act, but like before she was famous, like Celine Dion used to act. She was in a few TV series in Quebec. So I would have liked to see that. Let's talk Oscars. It seems like a foregone conclusion that Angelina is going to be nominated for Best Actress at the Oscars. She's kind of too big of a name to pass up, and this is a biopic, and people are talking about how it's somewhat of a comeback for her, and she's phenomenal, blah, blah, blah. Personally, I wouldn't nominate her. From what I've seen so far this year in other performances, other movies, and what I know is coming, there's much better and more interesting work being done. I don't think she'll miss. I think she'll be in the conversation. A lot of Oscar pundits have her predicted as winning, which I think is completely crazy. I don't see that happening, and I don't want that to happen. That, I think, would be the film's only nomination. I mean, there's an argument to be made for cinematography, but I think like this movie is just too small. There's a lot of better stuff out there this year. So in closing, I guess if you want to complete Lorraine's trilogy, you need to see this. If you're a fan of Angelina Jolie, you probably already have a ticket for this. I gave the film 2 stars on Letterboxd. Let me know what you think once you see it. I think the movie comes out in December. There may be a few weeks in theaters, and then it drops on Netflix. And if some Jolie fans want to argue with me in the comments, be my guest.